The strongest influence for sure would be Patricia McLaughlin and her fabulous book Sarah Plain and Tall, which won the Newbery the year that I was fortunate enough to have Patricia as a college professor teaching a children's literature class. So her novel is something that I have always loved for its what she called her bare bones writing, and I consider it sort of a sparse elegance that's quite hard to achieve, and it's something I've always sort of consciously striven for in my own writing.
Ramona Quimby, age 8. This book has impacted my life in many ways. For one thing, I live in Portland now, and I think it's a large part due to the Ramona books. And also reading this book, I remember very clearly reading this book when I was 8 years old and thinking, how could that be? I'm 8 and Ramona's 8. And it was the first time I really felt that I was being reflected in a book, that I saw myself so clearly in a book. And Ramona was going through some of the same things I was, that her family is worried about money. Will they get to go out for hamburgers on Friday? Can they afford it? And just, I hope that every kid has that opportunity to see themselves reflected in a book, because it made me a reader and it made me a writer. And I reread this book recently. I reread the Ramona books all the time because I love them. And as a writer, I try and do what Beverly Cleary, I think, does so well, which is just taking the concerns and the feelings of kids very seriously and speaking to kids from the heart. And that's what I hope to do with my books.
The True Confessions of Charlotte Doyle by Avi, Sarah Plain and Tall by Patricia McLaughlin, A Long Way from Chicago by Richard Peck, The Watsons Go to Birmingham by Christopher Paul Curtis. I was at the Newbery Banquet when he received the honor. Back then, I could have never imagined that he'd blurb a book of mine, and when he agreed to be an early reader for Echo and subsequently write the blurb on the back of the book, well, that was the kindest accolade. Thank you, Chris. And thank you to all the Newbery committees who brought these books to the forefront.
Some of my favorite illustrators were Leo and Diane Dillon, Jerry Pinkney, Ezra Jack Keats, of course. I still have my son's copy of A Snowy Day and read it to my granddaughter as well. So I think that children's books were my first art galleries. Before I had ever gone to a museum or had gone to an art gallery, I was looking at illustrations in children's books and being transported to places all over the world and to different lifestyles and different people's stories through those pictures. Those are my greatest influences.
My name is Matt De La Pena. Yeah, there are a few Newbery winning / honor books that have really influenced me as a writer. I think the most important one for me is Bud Not Buddy by Christopher Paul Curtis. Man, that voice just slays me. It kind of taught me what you could do in a kid's book. Another one is Jackie Woodson's Brown Girl Dreaming. I think this is very important to our field. I love the memoir form, and it took us on a journey that I don't think we'd ever been on in kids' books. Also love this book, Inside Out and Back Again by Tang Ha. The whole thing to me is a poem. I love this book. And then anything by Katie Camillo. I mean, she pretty much wins the award every other year, but I think she's really, really important to our field. I fall in love with every single story she's ever told.
Hello, I'm Sophie Blackhawk. I've got something to show you. Will you come with me? Is that okay? Can you come with me? Okay, let's go. Are you coming? Are you coming? Let's go. Welcome to my library, the Brooklyn Public Library. We're going to go this way. I want to tell you about 4 Caldecott medal books that have been incredibly important to me in my life. Important as a child when I read them growing up, as a parent reading them to my own children, and as an illustrator that have influenced my work. The first one is Virginia Lee Burton's The Little House. I loved this book when I was a child, and I love it still. It is a book that really makes you feel the passing of time and development and industry, and I've always had this dream of a little tiny house in the country, and I have that little tiny house now, and I think that is largely to the profound influence of this particular book. The second book I want to show you is this one. Ezra Jack Keats, The Snowy Day. I read this book to my children in this very library. To me, Ezra Jack Keats distills what it is to be a child with the most simple shapes and textures and patterns and colors. He shows a child's snowy day, and it's one of my favorite books. The third book I want to show you is Alison Martin Provençon's The Glorious Flight. As an illustrator, I love their work so much. This book in particular has this amazing sense of history, and yet it's sort of stylized and naive, but you get this sense of the characters, and this is the funniest crumpled plane you will ever see. The fourth book is Brian Floker's Locomotive. I share a studio with Brian Floker, and I got to see this book being made over several years. I saw the extraordinary research that went into it, and the drawing, and the painting, and the repainting, and everything they say about it is true. So those are 4 of the many Caldecott books that mean a lot to me. Thank you so much for coming to my library, the Brooklyn Public Library. But the great thing about libraries is they belong to all of us. And the other great thing about libraries is you never know what amazing books you're going to find there. Bye.